Hey, welcome back to How to Gain Muscle from MacroWOD. I'm Peter Haas, and in today's lesson, we'll be talking about how to keep your progression on track as you go through your mass gain phase. So the learning objective for today is going to be to define a plan for changing your macronutrient targets to stay within the tracking parameters. Okay, so you want to keep your progress on track. We'll talk about three different scenarios. The first one being that you are on track. You are gaining between zero point 0.3 and zero point 0.7 of your body weight per week. So things are going smoothly. So things are good. The only thing I would really say about this is do not get over eager. Don't say, if this is working well, that I can just go ahead and double it and make it work even better. Again, you want to stay within that 0.3 to 0.7 so that you're not just gaining a bunch of fat. Okay, so if you're in the middle, just stay there and just keep riding it because even though it might be working really well the first couple weeks, you probably will end up tapering off because of body weight adaptations, metabolic adaptations as you go along, and then we'll have to adjust anyway. So be patient. All right, the second scenario is going to be you are gaining too slow. So that is going to be less than 0.3% body weight gain per week. So there's two main things that we can do to tweak this, and I mean this goes for cutting, for anything. So we can either change our calories, we can add calories, or we can change our activity. In this case, reduce activity. So let's talk about this separately. So if you're gaining too slow, you could reduce your activity depending on how hard you're training as a CrossFit athlete. You could reduce your activity. So I don't really recommend that though, depending on how hard you're training or what your goals are. I mean, if you're going to, if you're really just training like an hour, you're just doing classes, do an hour at a time, not really doing much outside of the class, I don't recommend changing that. I like people going to CrossFit every single day or doing something every single day. So if you really, if that's for you, then I wouldn't really recommend dropping that. If you are training a lot on top of that, 2, 3, 4 hours a day, you can look at reducing your volume some if that fits in your overall performance goals. Maybe cutting out some extra cardio, but again, you'll really have to make that determination. So I'm not really hot and heavy on that one. The best way is to simply add calories, and the primary way that I would recommend doing that is fat. So you're going to go up by 250 calories, which translates into 28 grams of fat. Okay, a little bit more than 250. It's like 252 or something like that, but you get the idea. So you'll add that on top of whatever you're doing right now, and keep tracking and look at that to restart your gains. Here's some wiggle room though. So there is a slight exception to the fat. So I say the fat because you're a lot less likely to bloat extra or water weight gain or kind of negative things that people have going on. That being said, some can kind of get to the point where consuming that much fat is kind of gross. If it ends up being you do that to the second time, the third time, the fourth time to restart your it's just a lot of fat, and for your palate it just might be sort of gross. So you have options. So the biggest thing with gaining is hitting, in my opinion, is hitting total a minimum amount of protein, hitting your protein count, and then hitting a minimum amount of calories. So if you were doing a cut, one way of looking at it is you're capping yourself. Our goals for the gain are really you should be consuming at least this much to keep on gaining. So what that means is I'm perfectly okay with you taking, instead of consuming an extra 28 grams of fat, you can do, just like 10 grams of fat and the rest carbs. You'll have to figure out like how many carbs versus fat, or even protein. You could add more protein, and if you really like protein, if you'd rather make your protein up, that I'm actually in that category. I'd rather add protein and go up 1.5 body weight. For me, I can eat almost an unlimited amount of protein that way. So just add the extra calories in somehow. I would start with fat, but you can do it with carbs or protein if you prefer. So, okay, so third and final category would be if you are gaining too fast. Okay, so if you're going above 0.7 percent of your body weight per week. So again, the dangers of that are you're just gaining fat at an accelerated rate in comparison to your muscle. So we want to minimize that fat gain. So we want to slow down a little bit. So in this situation, controlling activity could be a benefit. You can increase your activity to increase your total calorie burn per day. Putting an extra 30 minutes of cardio, whether it's intervals or just going for a run or a longer row or on the bike. That's viable and will help your fitness overall. So I would actually recommend doing that as opposed to cutting your calories if possible, because it'll just help your performance. You can also just subtract calories. That's the other option also. So just and you want to subtract whatever you most recently added. So in that context, so say like you're coming off of a baseline, or you're coming off on ramp or off a maintenance phase from a cut or coming from a cut. And if you purely just added fat in, then you can just decrease that fat, back by 250 calories by 28 grams. If, like in the previous scenario, you bumped up your protein or your carbs to get that extra 250 calories, you can go ahead and, scale that back a bit. If you find yourself, being in a position where like you just went up 250, but now you're gaining too fast, so that's kind of weird. My recommendation would be to maybe ride it out to another week or two to see if it settles back out and not change too quickly. And then you can also cut by less than 250 if you need to. You can cut by 150 or 100 to make a slight adjustment to get you. If you're gaining like 0.8 or 0.9, if it's really not that that huge amount, you can fine tune a little more, like that. So okay, so to recap, 3 scenarios: 1, you're staying on track. 2, you're gaining too fast or you're gaining too slow. Down to manipulating your calories or your activity. So you can either increase or decrease your activity, or you can change your calories by 250, via protein, fat, primarily by fat, but you can use other macronutrients if you so desire. So, all right, if you got any questions, let me know. Good luck.